In the second year of my reign, I found myself faced with a coalition of the princes from Kadesh and Megiddo, who had mobilized a large army. What's more, the Mesopotamians and their kinsmen living in Syria refused to pay tribute and declared themselves free of Egypt. In the Battle of Megiddo in 1457 BC, I assembled an army of over 20,000 men and about 1,000 chariots, and I decided not to wait for the prince of Kadesh and his army to advance towards Egypt but to go ahead and attack them on their own ground, besieging Megiddo, which is 300 kilometers away. To get there meant crossing the deserts of Sinai and Gaza, so it was necessary to carry sufficient supplies of water and food. More than 14 tons of grain and 25,000 tons of water that were loaded in transport carts pulled by oxen, and the water in sealed clay jars to prevent it from spilling on the way. I immediately set out with my army. I crossed the Sinai Desert and marched to the city of Gaza, which had remained loyal to Egypt. The events of the campaign are well documented because my private secretary, Janeni, kept a record which was later copied and engraved onto the walls of the Temple of Karnak. As historians said, this first campaign revealed me to be the military genius of my time. Because I understood the value of logistics and lines of supply, the necessity of rapid movement, and the sudden surprise attack. I led by example and was probably the first person in history to take full advantage of sea power to support my campaigns. The Battle of Megiddo was fought between Egyptian forces under my command and a large rebellious coalition of Canaanite vassal states led by the king of Kadesh. It is the first battle to have been recorded in what is accepted as relatively reliable detail. Megiddo was my first objective because it was a key point strategically. It had to be taken at all costs. When I reached Aruna, I held a council with all my generals. There were 3 routes to Megiddo: 2 long, easy, and level roads around the hills, which the enemy expected me to take, and a narrow, difficult route that cut through the hills. My generals advised me to go the easy way, saying of the alternative, horse must follow behind horse and man behind man also, and our vanguard will be engaged while our rearguard is at Aruna without fighting. But my reply to this was, as I live, as I am the beloved of Ra and praised by my father Amun, I will go on the narrow road. Let those who will, go on the roads you have mentioned, and let anyone who will, follow my majesty." When the soldiers heard this bold speech they shouted in one voice, "We follow thou majesty whithersoever thy majesty goes." I led my men on foot through the hills, horse behind horse and man behind man, showing the way by my own footsteps. It took about 12 hours for the vanguard to reach the valley on the other side, and another 7 hours before the last troops emerged. And I waited at the head of the pass till the last man was safely through. In the Battle of Megiddo, I wasted no time in mobilizing my forces and marching from Thebes toward the city. The sudden and unexpected appearance of Egyptians at their rear forced the Allies to make a hasty redeployment of their troops. There were over 300 Allied kings, each with his own army, an immense force. However, I was determined, and when the Allies saw me at the head of my men leading them forward, they lost heart for the fight and fled for the city of Megiddo, as if terrified by spirits. They left their horses and chariots of silver and gold.